Story 1. There was a player at the casino who used to come in on his mobility scooter, order Red Bull and vodka repeatedly, smoke unfiltered cigarettes, and play 3 video poker machines at a time for 36 to 48 hours. He weighed at least 380 pounds, hated the entire world, and ordered food only from the fried chicken place. One day, I went to wake him up and he was dead. Story 2. I saw a man chase 6 energy drinks with a cigarette and call it breakfast while claiming sleep is a scam. I'm convinced his organs have a group chat to plan their escape. Story 3. I once saw a guy spraying paint into his mouth to get high. Normally, when people do this, they would use fabric to filter everything except the gas. However, he didn't, and his mouth was coated in black paint. I would not recommend getting high like that. Story 4. I once watched someone with a food addiction shoving food into their mouth so quickly that they hadn't chewed what was already there. And some fell out when they opened their mouth to take more bites. They started using their fingers to compact the food so they could chew it. They were also shaking the entire time and snorting because they could barely breathe. It was horrific. Story 5. My dad smoked 4 to 10 packs of cigarettes a day, drank a 12-pack of beer daily, and consumed a mix of sit-down and fast food constantly, along with beanie weenies. He slept about 4 hours a night and, at one point, claimed to have been with 14 women. This behavior continued for most of 30 years. He stopped smoking and drinking after his second near-death experience. His involvement with sex workers diminished in the 2010s, as he rotates between 3 or 4 women depending on who is upset with him. He also suffered from recurring skin cancer for 23 years and spent 3 years in prison, which did reduce his drinking, although he had a friend supplying him with cash for cigarettes. He is dangerously close to living an average lifespan, which raises the question, how long would this medical anomaly have lived if he hadn't spent 30 years trying to harm himself? Additionally, he is extremely anti-cannabis. He fired his housekeeper over what he believed was a cannabis vape, but it turned out to be a nicotine vape. Story 6. When I was a teenager, I struggled with alcohol. I would often go days without eating. One time, I blacked out, woke up at home, ran to my toilet and started vomiting. Little did I know that when I opened my eyes, I would be met with dark brown coffee grounds. My toilet was filled. It was on the seat, everywhere. I had no recollection of my day and continued to vomit before cleaning up and going to bed. I continued to drink for 6 months afterward, still occasionally vomiting coffee grounds. I never got checked. I mentioned it to my doctor a few years later at 18, and he said I had probably burned a hole in my esophagus that started to bleed into my stomach. Since the symptoms had stopped after I quit drinking, he didn't investigate further. Before people ask where my parents were, they were struggling with addiction. I lived in a difficult environment and was following their example. While people are reading this, I want to say thank you for the kind words. I was very young and it was scary for me. Looking back, it hurts to see how much I continued to drink after those experiences. As a mother now, I recognize how little I was. No child at that age should put themselves in the dangerous situations I found myself in. I appreciate everyone who wishes me well, and I wish every child who walks this earth alone the safety and luck I have had. Story 7. I was behind a person in a drive-thru once. She was in an SUV, and it sagged on the driver's side. I half expected the suspension to break. She ordered a medium ranch dressing. The person taking the order was understandably confused, so the lady figured it would help to scream her order. Finally, she said a medium drink cup filled with ranch dressing. She pulled over to the side after she got her food. I passed her on my way out, and she was taking a huge bite of her burger and drinking the ranch as a chaser, as if it were her beverage. I have not eaten ranch dressing to this day. Story 8. I was parked in a Walmart parking lot in the Fort Lauderdale area while eating lunch on the way to the Florida Keys during a road trip. I saw a man who had just exited the store walk into a brushy area about 15 feet wide between the parking lot and the main road. He took a can of compressed air out of his Walmart bag and inhaled it until he became dizzy and stumbled, falling into a bush. I lost sight of him and wondered if I should check on him or call for help. About 5 minutes later, he got up, looked around, pulled his Walmart vest out of the bag, and presumably returned to work. Story 9. Setting a bag of pork rinds and a 2-liter bottle of soda on the nightstand so her toddlers wouldn't wake her up for food in the mornings. She also lectured me about working instead of relying on welfare and staying home with my teenage children after their father passed away. Story 10. I worked at Starbucks in college. We had a morbidly obese woman come through the drive-thru every weekday morning. Her order was a 26-shot white chocolate mocha with 11 pumps of syrup, whole milk, caramel sauce coating the inside of the cup, and whipped cream. We estimated it to be around 1,500 calories. Story 11. I have a friend who only eats pepperoni pizza for every meal and drinks diet soda. He has not had water in 10 years. Story 12. I have shared this story before, but here it is again. I am a retired paramedic, and one night years ago, we received a call about a 20-something-year-old with cardiac symptoms. In the area where we worked, this generally indicated cocaine or crack-induced chest pain. We arrived at a rundown single-room occupancy building and were directed to the second floor. Our patient was crawling toward us and, upon seeing us, yelled, "Get me a priest!" My instincts were on high alert, but all the other residents were coming out to see what was happening. So we carried him down to the ambulance to evaluate him. I asked for his medical history, and he uttered a 5-syllable medical term that I hadn't heard since medic school. Great, I thought. We put him on the monitor, and he was in atrial fibrillation, which is an abnormal heart rhythm that, while not the worst, is unusual for someone so young, with a heart rate of about 180 beats per minute, far too fast. We established an intravenous line, administered a medication called amiodarone, and gave him a substantial amount of fluids. He perked up fairly quickly. When we asked him what he was doing when his symptoms started, this turned out to be a mistake that caused significant mental strain for my partner and me. He explained that he had been in and out of the hospital all week, with his first visit for the exact same issue. Upon discharge, he asked the doctor how to prevent this from happening again. The doctor gave a basic recommendation: avoid drugs, limit caffeine, refrain from nicotine, stay hydrated, engage in light exercise, and maintain a good diet. However, the patient returned home and could only remember the doctor saying to drink lots of water. He consumed almost 3 gallons of water before his sodium levels dropped dangerously low, prompting him to call emergency services again. Upon his second discharge, he asked the same doctor how to avoid this happening again. The doctor, likely astonished, told him something along the lines of, "Don't chug 3 gallons of water." When he returned home, he misconstrued the doctor's advice as an instruction not to drink any water. 2 days later, we received another call because he had not had any fluids since his last hospital discharge. We took him back to the same hospital for the third time, and the triage nurse immediately approached us, asking what brought him in this time. She was impressed but not surprised to learn the reason. Story 13. In high school, a student put paint thinner in an empty can of chewing tobacco and inhaled it. He was using it for an hour straight for several days in class, so who knows what that did. Story 14. Someone with unmanaged diabetes has undergone numerous surgeries to remove toes and parts of her feet. She now has stubs for feet and no toes. Despite this, she continues to eat sweets and fast food. She is mostly immobile unless she wears special shoes and uses a walker, which she often chooses not to use. She sleeps sitting up on her couch. Her adult children provide all the sweets and food for her, believing that since she is her own person, she can have what she wants. Additionally, she had a quadruple bypass surgery a year and a half ago, during which multiple people brought her cookies and jams in the hospital. Story 15. I used to use heroin, so I have seen a lot of terrible things. The worst was probably seeing someone take other people's used syringes when they couldn't find a vein. She would save them, dump out the congealed bloody contents, add water, heat it up, and try to filter out the blood to inject again. She died from heart failure. Story 16. I once had a patient who developed an infection in a small surgical wound that started at 1 centimeter wide. He sensed something was wrong but didn't seek medical attention until he could no longer lie on his back. He was diagnosed with necrotizing fasciitis, a flesh-eating bacteria that destroyed the skin from the middle of his thighs up to his mid-back. It was so severe that when he arrived at the hospital, he had only about a 30% chance of survival. I will never forget that smell. Story 17. There is a place in Las Vegas called the Heart Attack Grill, where customers over 350 pounds eat for free. They serve burgers up to 64 ounces. If you do not finish, you are paddled by a nurse and then escorted to your car in a wheelchair by your own private nurse. Story 18. As a toddler, my grandmother babysat me every day while my parents worked in the 1990s. I was not given juice or milk, just regular soda all day every day. As a result, I started having panic attacks at age 4. Story 19. I once worked with a frequent traveler struggling with alcoholism whose teenage son had to drive her to the hospital for detox. She would often have visible injuries from her falls. A coworker informed me that she was found deceased in a restaurant parking lot during their lunch break, a bottle still in hand. Story 20. I saw a man use puddle water to inject heroin in New York City. He seemed annoyed as we walked past him and gave us a look as if we had just wandered into his living room. Story 21. My brother started drinking and using drugs at age 10 or 11. He smoked all his life and got drunk every day he could. He died at 56, leaving his wife behind. He never had a moment of reflection where he decided to try to get better. When he passed away, he weighed 90 pounds, had a 4-inch hole in his esophagus, along with a tumor. I discovered that he had been eating an entire bag of maximum strength menthol cough drops every day for 8 years. He would never go to the doctor. He got what he wanted, I guess. Story 22. I wouldn't say it's the worst thing I've seen, but a girl around 22 with whom I worked for about 2 years said she had only consumed coffee and caffeinated drinks for over 10 years and had never drunk water because she simply didn't like it for some reason. She often complained about headaches, stomach pain, joint pain, being overweight, eye issues, and various other health problems. I kept in touch with her for the duration of my time there, and towards the last 6 months, I noticed she had a half-gallon water jug. I asked her about the sudden change. She told me she had visited the doctor, who advised her to make some changes, namely to quit caffeine and eat healthier. By the time I left, she had lost a significant amount of weight and had basically stopped complaining about the previous issues. Another situation I observed was with an ex-girlfriend who had been drinking over a 12-pack of soda along with minimal water daily for around 10 years. The doctor informed her that she was developing a hole in her stomach due to excessive soda consumption, but that never deterred her. Story 23. I once knew someone who lived only on energy drinks, instant noodles, and cigarettes for months. They barely slept, were constantly stressed, and refused to go to the doctor even when it was clear they were crashing. It was like a slow-motion train wreck. Story 24. We had a neighbor who took a lot of drugs and hit himself in the back with a sledgehammer to prove he was superhuman. He wasn't. I heard he died shortly after we moved out. Story 25. I had a friend whose entire diet consisted of bread, coffee, earned brew, pasta, chips, fried rice, and crisps. They smoked 30 cigarettes a day. Yes, they were from the west of Scotland. Story 26. I have a friend who consistently has bug infestations in her apartment, no matter where she lives. Story 27. I was in an alley in a rough area of town with some colleagues shooting a scene for a video project. I saw a man, probably close to my age, slowly work his way along the wall, looking for and finding used drug needles. When he found one, he would inject it into his arm and push the plunger down, presumably for the last small amount of drugs that might still be in the vial. It was extremely hard to see. It was the saddest moment I have ever witnessed. Story 28. Drive a ride-on lawnmower into an air conditioning unit to break the pipe, then proceed to inhale the freon leaking from it to get high while on the job as a landscaper. Things did not go well for that person from that point. Story 29. I thought of about 10 stories. My 20s were dangerous, I guess. But the worst experience was being a passenger with a guy who displayed extreme road rage and followed a family into a grocery store parking lot. Still scares me. Story 30. I watched a coworker drink a 2-liter bottle of Mountain Dew while chain-smoking through their tracheotomy hole. They also saved time by microwaving unopened cans of soup to sterilize the metal. Story 31. I knew a woman who would take about 40 Vicodin a day. She became pregnant and continued using pain medication excessively, claiming her doctor advised her not to stop smoking marijuana or cigarettes because it could stress the baby. I felt so bad for my friend who was involved with her. The child was born with severe developmental issues. She made loud noises all day. It got worse when she became pregnant again, continuing her harmful behavior. The new child needed to wear a helmet due to flathead syndrome because she left him lying on his back all day without interacting with him. I lost all respect for my friend after that. Story 32. Smoking. My mom is in her mid-60s and has smoked at least a pack a day since she was a teenager. She smokes in the house, in the kitchen around food, while people are eating, in the car, and even around my nieces and nephews who are toddlers. I was unaware of it growing up, but when I go back there, I feel nauseous the entire time. It's so bad that items like toilet paper, napkins, and paper towels have a yellow tint to them. When we tell her to stop, we get the response, "It's my house." She also exclusively drinks diet soda because she doesn't like water. The sad thing is she will probably outlive our entire family. My grandmother was the same way and lived into her late 90s. Story 33. Pretending they can work 80-hour weeks, have little sleep, act cranky, and expect others to be their maid. They come to work and display passive-aggressive behavior. Story 34. On video, I saw a man cough so hard I thought he was going to collapse on camera for at least 2 solid minutes before pulling out a cigarette, lighting it, and inhaling half of it in 15 seconds. Then he said, "Phew, I almost lost my breath there." My brother worked as a paramedic and transported a very large person home from the hospital. He said she was very nice and tried to explain how the last crew was able to carry her up the steps. He said they finally got her on the couch, and their partner began delivering food and drinks from the kitchen using a remote-controlled car with a tray on top. He said the first 2 items were a 2-liter bottle of Mountain Dew followed by an entire rotisserie chicken, and the food kept coming until they left the house. He said that was the straw that broke the camel's back, and he could no longer watch the horror of society on a daily basis, so he quit. Story 35. Use his own urine to inject drugs. He had a large open wound afterward that resembled cheese pizza. Story 36. I was in the emergency room because I broke my arm, and a homeless man was brought in on a stretcher after injecting drugs into his eyeball. The idea of choosing your eye as an injection point is shocking. Story 37. One of my best friends drinks multiple energy drinks a day. I care about him, but I'm concerned for his heart. Story 38. I have no idea how unhealthy this is, but it haunts me to this day. My cousins used to pour a lot of salt into lemon juice and drink it straight. I am a lifelong gastroesophageal reflux disease sufferer, and even as a kid, I thought, you're going to get a serious ulcer. What the hell? Story 39. Disregard his health enough to lose a finger to diabetes. Additionally, many people in the parking lot at work use marijuana and methamphetamine. Story 40. I watched my best friend's cousin use morphine. She offered me some, but I declined, which was good since I later found out during a medical procedure that I am allergic to opiates. I have no social awareness, so I sat beside her and asked if I could watch. She walked me through the process step by step. It was educational. Story 41. I worked at Subway. A 12-inch double tuna already has a lot of mayonnaise mixed in. He got it toasted and then asked me to add extra mayonnaise. Story 42. My friend ate salmon soup for 2 weeks and refused to throw it out. He was sick every day after the 5th day. Story 43. My husband has a friend who never eats vegetables and doesn't drink water. He is very overweight and lives in his mother's basement. Story 44. I had a classmate in kindergarten whose parents let him stay up all night and then sent him to school with a Starbucks Frappuccino and a pack of Twinkies for breakfast every morning. Story 45. I knew a new age type of woman who, against all advice, decided she didn't believe in the necessity of modern medicine and opted for an all-natural home birth. She went on about the miracle of motherhood and her natural instincts, refusing logical warnings from everyone in her life. She had no help and no prenatal care, aside from probably waving crystals around and drinking herbal teas. Her birth plan consisted of watching some videos, and her partner and she planned to do a water birth at home. Unfortunately, her baby was born at home, early and with many complications and didn't survive. I am unsure how this isn't considered neglect. The woman herself almost died from excessive bleeding. If her mother hadn't rushed over and intervened, she likely wouldn't have survived. Story 46. When I was in high school, a friend of mine went to Wendy's and ordered a triple with double meat, just to see if they would fulfill the request. They did. It was so greasy that it ate through the foil wrapper. He ate the entire thing. Story 47. A customer asked for unfiltered cigarettes. Upon being informed that we didn't carry them, he bought a pack of filtered super menthols, pulled one out, broke the filter off and ate it, then lit his new unfiltered cigarette. Story 48. He drank bleach and then poured the excess all over himself. He didn't believe it, so he walked up to smell the bottle before starting to walk away. This incident sent him to the hospital. It happened in the middle of the day on a busy street with a lot of foot traffic. I spoke with someone in the area, and they said the man does this regularly. The level of concern for cleanliness is very low. Story 49. One day, someone introduced his brother to me. After his brother left, we talked about him. He told me that his brother hadn't drank a single glass of water in the last 3 to 4 years because he refused to drink anything other than soda and beer. Justifiably, he was really worried about him. And I stood there in disbelief, trying not to laugh because I couldn't believe what he had just told me. Story 50. Probably heroin. When I was in college, I was out to get some marijuana, and the dealer injected it in front of me. Kind of blew my mind. Story 51. A former coworker would have his bartender blow into his ignition interlock device so he could drive home. Story 52. A coworker who follows an espresso, energy drink, and IPA food pyramid, 4 hours of sleep, a triple shot latte for breakfast, a 16-ounce energy drink for lunch, and 2 beers to relax, then rinse and repeat. Essentially substituting liquid anxiety for meals and calling it a wellness plan. Story 53. One of my online friends told me that he has gone 3.5 weeks without drinking much water and has instead substituted it with coffee and tea. I hope he will listen to me as I continue to warn him about the consequences of dehydration. Story 54. At the water park, I watched in horror as a family of heavier women sprayed and rubbed cooking oil on themselves while chain-smoking cigarettes. Story 55. I once saw deep-fried butter sticks on the menu at a county fair. I thought that was a joke, but I swear, while we were eating, I saw someone get one and eat it. Story 56. I saw a child lick a movie theater concessions counter as if he were painting a fence. The parent was managing a few children and didn't seem to notice. Children can be quite messy. Story 57. I personally witnessed a 70-year-old man fall 43 meters down a cliff while climbing with 2 people who had never climbed before. I had to climb over to him, calm the other 2, and sit there for 8 hours, keeping him conscious and the others safe while rescue crews tried to reach us. He sustained massive injuries, including a cracked skull. Remarkably, he did not die. Story 58. I'm a teenager, so this is probably not even close to the experiences adults have had, but I'll share my own experience anyway. My friend does horseback riding, and I was shocked when she said she doesn't eat any breakfast before her competitions. Mind you, she usually gets dressed and ready at home, drives 1 to 2 hours to the venue, prepares for another 1 to 2 hours, and then rides in the sun for a pretty long time. I don't know the exact times. This made me feel weak in the knees because, as a volleyball player, not having food in your system for that long after waking up and then competing is very dangerous. You need energy to engage in something as physically demanding as sports. I even remember nearly fainting after skipping a meal before a volleyball practice. I am a setter who has to run a lot, so maybe that differs from horseback riding, I don't know. Anyway, this was shocking to me as a fellow athlete. Story 59. I ran into an old friend who had not been doing very well at all. He had a rough go of it, drugs, petty crime, the whole experience. I saw him one day, and he asked me for a ride to court for something he had done. I didn't know what it was. It wasn't far, completely walkable, but I had to decline. I would have helped, but I was on the clock. We talked for a minute, and when we parted, he asked if he looked okay for his court date. I told him, "Yeah, you look fine," which he actually did. He replied, "Good, thanks." This has me so stressed out. I've been up all night drinking beer and using drugs. Considering how he spent his evening, he did look all right. I haven't seen him since, but I heard from a friend that he's out of jail and in a sober living house. I genuinely hope he is doing well. He's a sweet guy but has a lot of issues. Story 60. Continue to consume large amounts of alcohol after already having a liver transplant, especially when the liver came from a veteran. Story 61. The wildest thing I've ever seen someone do was a guy who tried to live off only energy drinks and beef jerky for 2 months straight. No water, no real meals. Just cans of liquid chaos and strips of sodium. Story 62. A coworker ate several cans of Chef Boyardee, chugged a gallon of cream soda, and then vomited in the men's bathroom. Story 63. Smoke cannabis, hold the smoke in, take a 2-ounce shot of whatever you have on hand, chug a beer, and then exhale the smoke. It was me. I did that. I saw it in a movie and it hurt a lot. Story 64. Get ripped off of mouthwash. Some guys I knew from the local music scene we grew up in were coming to Memphis for a reunion. I convinced my friends here to go, and I was excited to see them again. When we arrived, their bassist was sitting on the sidewalk playing chess against a homeless man. I asked the singer what was happening, and he said, if Zach loses, he has to pay him $1. Zach gave up, paid $1, and everyone went inside for the big show. I'll play with you, I said, and we moved in front of a gas station to play. The only thing that mattered was our game of chess and the conversation we had. I beat him, and then he challenged me back. At the start of the second game, he looked at me sheepishly and said, I drink mouthwash. Do you mind? I offered to buy him a beer and put it in a big gulp cup, but he declined. He said the police give him trouble if he smells like beer, so I went in and got a beer to drink with him. While enjoying my cold beer, I told him about my love troubles, what I was doing, and what was in my messenger bag. Sipping on his mouthwash, he shared stories about being in prison, his daughter who would never speak to him again, and that he was too late for the shelter. He mentioned he had a spot in a ditch he liked, that old magic, where you sit for a while and time seems to stop. It was getting late, and I felt bad for holding him up. That's all right. We're tied 1-1. We gotta find out who's the better player. By the second game, he had a little mouthwash in him, and he beat me decisively. He wasn't mad about losing before, he just wanted to make his point. The third game was a breeze. By then, he was clearly intoxicated. He didn't want the $1 for the win since I had bested him, so I slipped a little cash into his backpack when he wasn't looking. I do not recall his name. He is most likely a number and may no longer be alive. But I'll never forget the night I battled the homeless chess master. It was a lovely evening. My friends were upset that I skipped the show. Story 65. I watched a rather overweight man eat his way through a pile of 18 Big Macs, only to get up and order 10 more. He finished all this food before I finished my cheeseburger combo meal. Story 66. Staying in a relationship where they felt unloved simply because they were afraid to be alone. Story 67. I watched a diabetic take out a large bag of chocolates. They ate the small chocolates typically given out at Halloween. Afterwards, a pile of wrappers accumulated next to them. Then, they cleaned up the wrappers and reached back into their work bag to pull out a zipped bag. From it, they took out a glucose monitor and checked their blood sugar level. They were surprised by the high reading and administered an insulin shot. Story 68. A person I worked with a long time ago before I retired inhaled a large amount of asbestos while he was under the influence. I suppose he was trying to demonstrate that it wasn't harmful. He was often disoriented, walking around with a jug of mixed alcoholic drink in a coffee cup, consuming it throughout the day. He has since passed away due to substance abuse. Story 69. My mom is an alcoholic who smokes about 30 cigarettes per day. In addition to taking many psychiatric medications, she is 65 years old, and I truly don't know how she is still alive. Story 70. I was in Afghanistan, in a village hiding and waiting for a high-ranking Taliban member to supposedly show up. Just as dawn broke, a woman came out of her front door, took a step to the right, lifted her dress, and defecated on the ground. A few minutes later, there was an explosion as the people we were supporting began their capture mission. The man of the house sprinted out the door, made a sharp turn, slipped on the feces, and fell hard enough to require an American medic to call for evacuation due to a broken leg and a severe head injury. And then there was the paperwork. The sworn statements were overwhelming as I had to repeatedly debrief what happened to that man. In short, defecating right next to your front door is the most unhealthy thing I have personally witnessed. Story 71. When I was a child in the 1990s, having lunch with my family at Pizza Hut, there was a man who ordered a large pizza and a pitcher of beer for himself. He proceeded to add an excessive amount of salt to his pizza and then to the pitcher of beer. There is no way that he is still alive. Story 72. I saw a guy bring a knee-high bottle of nitrous oxide and he kept hitting it non-stop until he froze and turned blue. Everyone just stared at him. It was wild. I also went to a wedding once and saw a woman in a skin-tight dress. She was attractive. It turned out she was a bodybuilder. Later in the night, a heated argument broke out. She punched a smaller woman in the face for complimenting her drink. Story 73. My friend was intoxicated and needed a ride home. After he got in, he picked up a package of Armor All wipes for cleaning plastic and proceeded to wipe his face. I barely had time to register what he was doing before he went for it. Story 74. One of my first jobs was at a popular sub-sandwich shop that was open late. One night, a large man walked in, probably around 6 feet 6 inches tall and definitely over 350 pounds, most of which was in his very large stomach. He appeared to be in his 40s but looked visibly unhealthy, with strained breathing from standing and an overall poor appearance. He asked for a sandwich with every type of meat we offered and specifically requested no vegetables. Then he asked for double mayonnaise on the bread. Moreover, he requested that we layer mayonnaise between the different types of meat. I feel like that man did not last long after that night. Story 75. I used to work in a news agency, and a man would come in every morning to buy 20 B&H Gold cigarettes and 10 energy drinks. He also purchased the Daily Star and Daily Sport tabloids, which somehow made it worse. Story 76. In junior high, a student ate the goop out of one of the starfish limbs we were dissecting on a dare. There was so much formaldehyde. I don't remember how much the bet was for, but it couldn't have been more than $5. He mostly did it for the attention. Story 77. I work on construction sites. This guy buys 6 soft drinks, 6 beers, and a pack of 12 hot dog sausages. Morning break, 3 sausages, 2 soft drinks. Lunch, 6 sausages, 2 soft drinks. Afternoon break, 3 sausages, 2 soft drinks. End of day, 12 beers. He did that for years every single day. Story 78. He played World of Warcraft from when he got home from school at 5 p.m. until 5 or 6 a.m., only stopping for dinner. He would sleep in the morning for 2 hours, attend school, return home, and repeat this for 2 weeks. During this time, he consumed about 24 cans of energy drink over 2 days. My former coworker used to drink about 8 cans of energy drink during an 11-hour shift. He also smoked around 40 cigarettes a day and used about 2 or 3 grams of cannabis daily. As far as I know, he is clean now. Story 79. I watched my friend eat an entire bag of pizza rolls with a large container of Wingstop ranch after melting cheese and butter over them. He downed it with a 2-liter Code Red. Story 80. I have had more than one colleague who arrives at work in the morning, sits down about half an hour later, and eats a chocolate bar or something similar along with an energy drink for breakfast. They say they have kids and need it, but they would feel much better with a bowl of porridge and a cup of coffee. Story 81. A coworker mentioned that their favorite meal was cup noodles with mayonnaise and hot sauce. I felt bad for them. Story 82. This guy is drinking 24,000 calories of olive oil. Story 83. One of my old friends would smoke at least a carton of Marlboro Blacks every 2 days. She was only 18. On top of that, she used various drugs and drank excessively. The last time we talked, she apologized to me for using meth, and I told her I couldn't be around her any longer. I have no idea how she is doing. It's been nearly 8 years. Story 84. My husband was in the army with a man who would consume a 1.75-liter bottle of vodka per day, along with additional drinks like Four Loko, all while neglecting his epilepsy and antidepressant medications and while at work. He is no longer in the army. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.